So hi guys, this is Karthik, and many of you are going to have your coding rounds, and many of you are already having your coding rounds. So how to actually attempt those coding rounds? You need to have a good idea about those rounds, and one of the best resource that I think to practice for those rounds is Lead Code. So Lead Code organizes these bi-weekly contests, I think every 2 weeks because it's called bi-weekly, but I'm not sure. It's Lead Code, they know better. So I'm going to basically in this video I'm going to basically attempt a bi-weekly contest, and I'll be doing it virtually. I've not seen the problems before, and I'll be sharing how I actually attempt a coding round, and if I were to give a coding round for a company, be it any company, how I would actually attempt that round. So I would be sharing my thought process while solving the problems, and I'll be coding them. So wish me luck. Hopefully I'll be able to solve some of the problems. Uh, okay, let's go for bi-weekly 33. Let's go to the contest. Okay, so we have 1 hour 30 minutes. I hope the video is not that long, but let's see. Let's solve the easiest problem first. I'm given an integer n. I need to add a dot as the thousandth separator and return it in string format. So instead of actually understanding from the problem statement, I would use the examples. 987, 987. If it's 1, 2, 3, 4, then you say 1.234. Okay, so basically they inserted a dot after 3 digits. Okay, so the problem is easy to understand. They are just inserting a dot after every 3 digits. Okay, so I'm given this integer n. How do I actually use it? If I'm given an integer n, I would like to make a string out of it, and after every 3 digits from the left going to the right, I would like to insert a dot. Now I do know how to extract the rightmost digit of a number, but how do I actually after extracting I need to put it in a string. Let's see how we can do that. So let's say string result and just a string answer for now, and from n I can either extract the rightmost digit. If I extract the rightmost digit, I could put it in my answer string, but then I'm actually constructing answer in a reverse order, right? Because if it's 987, I extract 7, I put it in answer, it becomes 789. So maybe it's smart to reverse n beforehand. So I could do this, reverse n. So I'm reversing integer n. Okay, that's the basic idea here, and I'll define a function int ref. This should be easy. So once I've reversed my integer n, I'll pass it by reference. Never mind. Yeah, so now my integer is already reversed. Now I just need to extract a digit and add it to my answer. After adding every 3 digits, I just need to put a dot. Let's just implement that quickly. So what I could say is, also do I need to know the okay, so I have this edge case here. If n equals to 0, let's handle this separately because this is going to give me trouble for sure. So if n equals to 0, return 0. This might give me a compile error, I'm not sure. No, it should not. Yeah, so while n not equals 0, I'll keep extracting the rightmost digit from n. N is the reversed number, and integer dig equals to n modulo 10. This gives me the rightmost digit. N by equals to 10, that digit is erased. Put it in my answer, so answer dot push back. I can add dig plus 0. So once this is done, also I need to keep track of when I've added exactly 3 digits. So I could say int added equals to 0. After pushing back 1 digit, I increment added, and if added equals to 3, then in fact if added equals to 3, this means I've inserted 3 digits exactly, and that means now I need to put a dot. So if added equals to 3, then this means I've added 3 digits. So push a dot. Oh my god, they don't allow to copy. Oh, they do. That's good. And I can say okay, push a dot. So hopefully this should run. If it does not, then I should give up on coding. Okay, I shouldn't have said that because it's not going to run. If added equals to 3, then added equals to 0. It's basically a modulo kind of thing. Yeah, let me try it out. Please work. Okay, it gave me a compile error. Okay, I haven't defined ref. So integer temp equals to 0 while in not equals to 0. So this should do the trick. Let me try. This into 10 can't be represented in integer type. Integer t equals to signed integer overflow. This into 10 cannot be represented in int. It's line number 8. Temporary equal to temporary into 10. N by equals to 10. Alright, so this worked. Let me submit. Okay, it's giving me another edge case. Oops, I had to count the digits from the right hand side. Oh my god. So now these are the things that happen during a contest and you are like, okay, I wasted a lot of time and we don't have the answer. So how do I actually use the same code to improve the thing? So by this, I have simply converted my integer n into a string, right? This particular code does that. I'm not adding any dots yet. And now what I could do is I could process from the right hand side and add dots at the correct positions. And that should do the thing according to me. So what I can do is I could take this string, start processing from the right hand. After processing 3 digits, put a dot. But if I put a dot, I need to shift the remaining contents to the right? So that makes no sense to me. Okay. So this was not a smart coding practice according to me. And what if I do it in the reverse order? Meaning that I keep adding the digits from the right to the left, and if I reverse the string. So if I were to do 4, 3, 2 dot 1 and then reverse this particular string. So it would become 1 dot 2. Okay, let me try for this. If I do it, if I make a string 987 dot 654 dot 321, right? And if I reverse that, that will work, right? So let me just not reverse this for now, and I would still have a string. I'm really struggling so much. Oh my god. Okay, so now I just need to reverse this string and I might have my answer. So there is a library function for reversing. Reverse answer dot begin, comma answer dot end. Let me run this. Okay, it ran. Let me submit. Please work. Oh yes, it got accepted. Let's move to the second problem already. We have already wasted a lot of time on the easiest problem of the contest. Minimum number of vertices to reach all nodes. Given a directed acyclic graph within vertices numbered from 0 to n minus 1 and an array edges. Okay, so edge represents from where to where. Okay, find the smallest set of vertices from which all nodes are reachable. Let's guarantee that a unique solution. Find the smallest set of vertices from which all nodes in the graph are reachable. I don't get it. Let me see. It's not possible to reach all the nodes from a single vertex. From 0 we can reach all these. From 3 we can reach these. So output 0, 3. Okay. So I'm given a directed acyclic graph. I need to select some of the nodes in this particular graph, from starting from which basically using these nodes I should be able to reach all the other nodes, right? This somehow looks like topological sort, because if you look at node number 5 is virtually useless. I need a smallest set of vertices and I need to return that particular set. You can return the vertices in any order. If you look at 1 is useless because from 1 I cannot go anywhere, so 1 should not be included in the set. I need to include those nodes from where I could use and go somewhere else. So 0 seems very useful because from 0 I could go to 1, I could go to 2, I could go to 5. So if 0 is there, 2 is definitely useless, right? Because from 0 I could go to 2, so if I can reach 2, including 2 in my set is worthless. So I need to include those nodes to which there is no other way of reaching, because if there is a way of reaching a particular node from some other node, then that node is virtually useless and I'll be implementing exactly that. For example, in this case, from node 1 is not going to be included in my set because node 0 can be used to reach node number 1. Similarly, 2 will be there in my set because I cannot reach 2 from any other place. In fact, if you see 0 and 2 and 3 should be the answer, and that's the answer. Alright, so all I need to do is, can I reach this particular guy from some other node? If I can, then do not include it in the set, otherwise include it in the set. That is my idea. We'll implement and see. Okay, so to check that, I can have a DFS function. I guess we can. Okay, so let me try how I'm going to do that. I really think I should first think before implementing, but since it's for the YouTube channel, so wish me luck. Or maybe let me think just for a minute about what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take a node. If I can read if this particular node is not visited yet, that means I've not visited this node from any other node till now, then I will use this node and visit all, basically apply a DFS from this node, see which all nodes could be visited by this one, and all these nodes are now useless, right? Except for this one, because there is a possibility that no other node can read this guy. But from here, starting from here to which all nodes I visit, they are definitely useless, right? Okay, so let me have a set of useless nodes. Set int useless. I could have an unordered set, but I don't want to have it. And we'll start. In fact, I could do this. Useless nodes, and there are n number of total nodes. I will keep my set size n+1. I'm going to use 1 based indexing. It feels easier to me. Judge me if you want to, I don't care, but I really like 1 based indexing. Abstracts away the difficulty of -1 +1 everywhere. So I can declare my vector useless of size n+1, and I could say that all these values in this particular vector are initially 0. That means currently none of them is useless. Useless is 1, means all a particular guy is useless. So currently all of them are useful or not useless. I'm going to iterate through each of these nodes from node number 1 till n. And I'm going to apply a DFS starting from this particular node if this node is not useless. So apply a DFS if not useless. So if this guy, the ith node, is not useless, then apply a DFS from this node. Apply a DFS starting from node number I, and let me pass this useless thing also. I'll see whether I need it or not, but let me pass it. You guys might be judging me right now for making so many corrections. Anyway, you can judge me in the comments if you want. Yeah, so if it's not useless, apply a DFS, and in the end simply print or return all the nodes which were not useless. So I could have vector int useful, iterate through all these nodes, if not useless at I, then you insert it into the useful list. And I made one more mistake. I'll discuss what. So I insert it into useful, and finally I return useful, and my work is done. I just need to implement the DFS. That's your homework. Yeah, so the nodes start from node number 0. Why LeetCode? Why can they not start from node number 1? Not cool. But we are smart. Okay. Now to implement this DFS function, I need to know, I need a better representation than this thing. I don't like this particular representation here. So let me build another representation of a graph. And in this representation, what I would have a vector, an array of vectors, and the ith vector of this array would represent all the places from where, like starting from the ith node to all other nodes can I go. So from I, what are the edges that come out? That is the ith vector of going to represent. So when I code that will make it more clear. Let me not just make a function for now, although if you're in an interview, definitely make a function. Don't mess your code up. That's the worst thing that a software engineer can do. So let me have this thing. So vector array, I'll call it graph. I can have vector of integers. Let me loop through these edges. For every edge, integer I goes from 0, I less than equal, I less than edges dot size. So now edges at I dot first, not dot first, vector int, yeah, edges at I 0. There is an edge from I0 to I1. Okay, so this means that in my graph, starting from this given node, let me add a 1 to it. I will not tell why. You have to figure this thing out from this one. Since I took the nodes starting from 1 till n, but LeetCode is starting the nodes from 0 to n-1. That should give you a hint why I did that. So graph at edges I0, 1, and I should push back, meaning that from this node there is an edge to node. Honestly, this is hard. How did I used to clear my interviews? I have no idea. Like the coding rounds. Okay. Now I have a different representation, and this representation will be very useful for me in the DFS. Integer I. We have a vector of bools. And I have an array of vectors, so vector and a adjacency matrix. That's it. Okay, so if this guy is already useless, so if ul at I, if this guy is useless, simply return. There's no point of performing a DFS. If this guy is not useless, then perform a DFS and Wherever you visit, you mark those people useless. So I need to have another indicator that tells me whether I need to mark it useless or not. Mark, initially it's 0. For the first guy I call, it's cool because I'm not sure whether there is a path from some other node to this node. Otherwise, from here, if I'm going to somewhere, then I'm sure that this node can be used to reach this guy. So I need to mark that particular person useless. Okay, that's the idea. Having a visited might be helpful. Let me just code it out and we'll see. So if this guy was already useless, return. Otherwise, if mark, then I mark it useless. Okay, next perform a DFS. So for all the neighbors of this guy, and you'll see how this thing was useless, useful. Okay, you'll see how this particular adjacency matrix helps me. So for all the child for this guy, for all the edges coming out from here, so for every child of node I, that's it. You visit them, perform a DFS, that's it. Perform a DFS, say child ul adj and mark equals to 1, mark them useless, that's it. And we're done. Let's see how many errors I get. Okay, this thing passed. Let me submit. If this passes, I'm going to have a party. Oh my god, it got accepted. Nice. Let's go to the next problem now. We have already solved 2. Chances of getting shortlisted are getting higher. So now we have minimum number of function calls to make target array. Also guys, I've switched off my webcam. The flash really hurts my eyes. Moreover, the quality is not that great. Alright, so the task is to form an integer array nums from an initial array of 0. So okay, I have 2 arrays. One of them is filled with zeros and the other is a target array, I guess. Okay, return the minimum number of function calls to make nums from ARR. Okay, so this is the function given to us. Let's analyze this first. If op equal to 0, then add 1 to the index passed. So array at index plus plus if op equals to 0. Otherwise multiply all the elements by 2. Okay, function makes sense. Let's try this example. We have the target array 1 5. I start from a 0 0. From 0 0 I could get to 0 1 in one operation. Okay, I can add a 1 here. Double all the elements. Cool. I get 0 2. Then I could, obviously I can reach 0 4 by multiplying again by 2. Then I can finally add a 1 to this guy and I'm done. Cool. That seems okay. Smartly done. 5 operations. Okay, cool. So starting from an initial array and I have 0 0 and going to some other array, I could of course go for a BFS kind of approach in which I could think about which operation I'm going to do. Is it going to be operation 0 or is it going to be operation 1? If I do operation number 1, then it's okay, all elements will be multiplied. If I choose operation 0, I have again n options and I have to choose an index. So BFS is going to be very, very costly. Although it guarantees a correct answer, but it is very costly because the array size is also very large. Okay. Let's think about it in a reverse kind of direction. Instead of going from 0 0 0 to the target array, I go from the target array to 0 0 0 and these operations basically change. So if I'm currently at a state, I reach that state from a past state, right? And that could be any state, either divide by 2 or minus 1 at one of the indices. Okay, I would like to minimize. I don't really care what state, I just want to minimize the number of operations. Moreover, if I go in the past, this means starting from 2, 2, I can divide these by both of these by 2 and reach the state 1, 1. Then from there I will be going to the past and something like that till I reach 0 0 0 0. How does this help me? So the idea would be that I would like to make the divide operation as many times as possible, and the thing is that I could make a divide operation if and only if all the elements are divisible by 2. Because if I reach this particular state from the past by multiplying all elements by 2, then all the elements currently must be divisible by 2. Okay, and the idea that comes to my mind is the more division I may the more divide operations I do, the better it is, because the more divide you do, the faster you reach towards 0 comma 0. That's what I think. And if all elements are not divisible by 2, then of course you have to first of all subtract 1 from the elements which are not currently divisible by 2. So let's try it out. If I was in a coding interview, instead of proving it, I would actually go ahead and try this thing out. I'll discuss the complexities later, but it's going to be somewhat n log n. Why? Because I'll need at most log n operations to reach the 0 0 0 operation state, and performing every operation is going to take me big of n time according to me. So let's have a function named perform operation that performs the operations, of course, and a counter that tells how many times I've performed an operation. So while let's say that the perform operations also will tell me whether my work is done or not. Bool perform. So perform returns me a 0 when there is no more need to perform any more operations. Otherwise it returns me a 1 saying okay, you still need to perform more operations. So while perform, pass the numbers. If this returns a 0, we are done. If this returns me a 1, then there was a need to perform an operation, and I can add 1 to my counter. At the end, I could simply return the counter. Okay, work done. You can implement the perform on your own now, because I cannot, I guess. So if my numbers are divisible by 2, here is the idea. If my numbers are divisible by 2, divide them by 2. Nothing better than that. Okay. Also, if all the numbers are already 0, then that's great. So bool, did I do an operation? So work. Currently I'm assuming that I do not work. If I do work, then I'll make work equals to 1. This is what I'm going to return work. Okay, let's iterate through the numbers in this particular array. If this particular number is not divisible by 2, I need to subtract a 1 from it. Also, let's say bool mul2. Are all these numbers a multiple of 2? Initially I'm assuming they are. So numset I, if numset I is not is equals to 0, then no worries, ignore it. So first of all, if this is not a 0, then I have to do something. If numset I is a multiple of 2, if numset I a multiple of 2, okay, then what do I do? Numset I is a multiple of 2, then should I divide it? Not yet. I should do, if this is an odd number, then mul2 is 0 because all numbers are not a multiple of 2, and I should subtract a 1 from it. Yeah, subtract a 1 from it. Moreover, every time I subtract a 1 from a number, that is considered as an operation. I'll be returning the number of operations I perform here. Okay. This is getting messy again. I would prefer a do while. I would say integer operations performed equal to perform This will tell me how many operations it had to perform on nums. I will add that to CT, the number of operations I just performed. If the number of operations I performed was equals to 0, then I need to break. My work is done. And I could have a 1 here. Okay, cool. So if the number is odd, I subtract 1 from it, mul2 becomes 0, the number of operations I'm performing increases, so work I'm doing increases. So after this loop, if all my numbers were a multiple of 2, then I could in fact divide them and return 1. So again, I iterate through them and divide them. Moreover, there must be at least one number that is not a 0. So bool all 0. Currently I'm assuming all of them are 0, and if I encounter a guy that is not a 0, I say no, all of them are not zeros. So if all not 0 and they are all a multiple of 2, then divide them by 2 simply. Yeah, and in this particular case I should return the number of operations I just performed, which is 1 operation, because I simply divided them. Otherwise return work, and that's it. Let's try this out if it works or not. Okay, it won't work because I did not yeah, let me see. Compile error. Double equal to at the end, did you mean equal to bool all 0? Okay, yeah, I did mean single equal to. Thank you, LeetCode. Time limit exceeded, not cool. Let's debug. Debugging might be helpful to you guys because many of us do fail during the coding rounds only because we are not able to debug it. Okay, nums by equals to cd plus equals to ops. Let me try printing a few lines. I don't know if it will print or not, but let me just try. It will not print anything. Oh yeah, it does print. So it says 2 1 1 1 1 1 1 and it keeps performing operations for some reason. So work equals 0 if mul2 and not all 0. All 0 becomes 0 here. Nums at I. If OPS equals to 0, then break. Okay, since you cannot see me currently, but I'm scratching my head. Let me just turn on my camera. Yeah. Okay. You might feel more connected to me. If nums at I is not a 0, then so after some time all numbers should become 0, right? Work became plus plus. Nums at I mod 2 is not a 0, all 0 becomes 0 here. How about I say all 0? If all of them were zeros, then I could say my work is done, return a 0. If mul2, if all of them are multiple of 2 and not all are 0, then I could divide by 2 and return a 1. Divide all of them by 2's. Let me try it once again, although I doubt that it will work, but still. If OPS becomes 0, so only when the number of operations needed becomes 0, that is the point where I break. And somehow they are not becoming 0. There's some error in the implementation definitely. The operation perform nums. nums at I is not a 0, so initial integer works 0. Assuming all of them are multiples of 2, assuming all are zeros, I loop through all of them. If I find a non-zero element, I say no, at least one guy was not a 0, so all 0 becomes 0, that is false. If this particular guy was not a multiple of 2, so mul2 becomes a 0, that nums at I becomes minus minus and work becomes plus plus. Seems okay to me. Nums at I mod 2 was not a 0. Yeah, seems alright to me. And then nums at I became minus minus. So if I have done works, if I've done some work till here, I can return that. Or I could check if all were 0, return a 0. This seems okay. If all of them were a multiple of 2 and not all of them were zeros, then divide all of them by 2 and return a 1. Okay, but I am not dividing them all of them by 2. That is the problem here. I am returning a 1 inside the loop. I'm really sorry. Divide them first and then return a 1. This is poor programming practice from my side. And here I should be returning a 1. So even though not having these braces makes me look cool, but at the end of the day these braces are helpful. Let me submit. Please pass. And it got accepted. So yeah guys, complexity is n log n because this particular loop runs in big O of n time, very easy to analyze. And since we're doing division operations and the numbers can be at most 2 power 30, so every time you divide by 2, all the numbers become half. So the time you are going to take tn becomes tn by 2. So hopefully you get the idea. If you don't, then you can ask me in comments, but it's n log n because this loop will run at most log n times, some constant plus log n times. Okay, so let's move to the next problem now. Or maybe 3 are enough. Let me just read the fourth problem, and if I feel it's too hard from me, I'll just skip it. Detect cycles in a 2D grid. Given a 2D array of characters grid n cross n, you need to find if there is a cycle consisting in the same value in grid. The cycle is path of 4 length or more. Okay, grid starts and ends the same cell. From a given cell, you can move to one of the cells adjacent to it in one of the 4 directions, up, down, left or right, if it has the same value of the current cell. Okay, detect. If you need to find if there is a cycle consistent. Okay, so in this example I cannot actually, okay, so there is a big cycle here of A's and a big cycle here of B's, so the answer should be a yes, I guess. There are 2 valid cycles. Oh yeah, I did detect them, so even if I'm not able to solve them, at least I do understand the problem. In this one I don't see, yes, I do see a cycle of C's. I don't see any other cycle. There is only one cycle highlighted. What do we need to return as an output? Okay, just a yes or no. How do I actually find these cycles? That is the problem, I guess. I just need to say yes or no whether there is a cycle or not. For finding a cycle, I could start from a guy. I could keep doing a DFS. Okay, if I'm starting from an alphabet A, go to some other that starts at A, do a DFS. If I reach this point ever again from some other guy than this, then there has to be a cycle. Is that all? It's a lead code hard. You have to be harder. I think I'm missing something maybe. Start from here. If I ever reach here again, then there's a cycle. And in my opinion, doing a DFS from every cell should not be very costly, given that I do mark visited people. Why will it be wrong? That is the idea, because my idea is very simple. It has to be wrong for a lead code hard. So let me just try this here. My idea is that, okay, from here A, I would go for a DFS and I would visit some of the neighboring cell that is also A. So from this guy, I go here, I marked this one visited and I went here. From here again, I would go to some other guy that is an A. So I go here, I go here, 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 and I keep following, and yeah, I do reach back to one of the visited guys. So I redirected a cycle. That's it. Let me just implement it quickly. If we have a problem, then I'll end the video and I'll let you know the answer and the solution. If I do clear it, then you can subscribe to the channel. Otherwise also please do subscribe to the channel. और यहाँ तक देख ली तो कर ही देना सब्सक्राइब. DFS, take a position integer ij, also taken a grid. Also would like to take the n and m of the grid. I know I can extract them from the grid itself, but I would like to have them as parameters. Makes my life easy. So from I comma j, I would visit one of the neighboring cell. More let me have a visited also. That would tell me if a particular person was visited in the past or not. So it's a 2D array again for visited also. Should this be 500 on? Will it cause me trouble writing a 501 here? I don't think so, to be honest. It should not. Yeah. So ij, first of all, mark I visit ij equals to true. Yeah. In fact, let me just have a 501 visited array throughout. So I mark it visited. Now I would visit the nearing cells which are the same alphabet and are not yet visited. But if they are visited, then that means there is a cycle. Plus I need to remember from which guy did I reach I comma j. Because that does not lead in a cycle definitely. So I need to remember the indice of the parent. So int pi comma int pj. So if one of the neighboring cells is visited already, then definitely there is a cycle, given that this is not the cell from where I reached I comma j. Alright, so I mark visit at ij equals to 1 and I see the neighboring people. What are the neighboring people? Four side adjacent, I think. Yeah, up, down, left, right. So if is valid the right, up, down, left cells. Okay, so I'll say I plus 1 comma j. If this particular cell is valid, then check if this is the same guy, basically the same character that is here. If grid if these are same and I plus 1 not equal to basically this particular cell I plus 1 comma j should not be the parent, right? I plus 1 not equal to pi and j not equals to any one of this is false, then I'm good to go. So I could have an OR here. One of this is false, so yeah, that means it's not the parent. So any of these is false is good for me. So pj. Okay, this is not the parent and the value here is the same as the value of the grid that I've checked already. I've checked this is not the parent, Now there are two conditions. One is if it's already visited or not. So if not visit ij, then I should visit it. But if it is already visited, then I should return a 1, meaning that there is a cycle. So if not visited, then do a DFS. Otherwise, return a 1. We are done. I'll just copy the same code. And if none of this gives me a cycle, then return 0. We are done. If this thing gives me a 1, then return a 1. This basically means the cycle was somewhere detected, right? Okay, the code is getting complicated for me now. So time to introduce global variables. And it's going to be bool cycle. So whenever I detect a cycle, I will just mark it 1 and my work is done. So whenever a cycle gets detected, you set your cycle variable to 1. That's the idea here. Anywhere if a cycle is detected. Okay, makes sense to me. So this was I plus 1 comma j. Now I'll be I comma j plus 1, and I'll check ij. I'll say j plus 1. Now I'll say I minus 1, grid I minus ij I minus 1. Visited at I minus 1j, not visited, then do this, else return a 1. If cycle I must have made some mistake in this poorly written code. Sorry about this. We'll find it out anyway. So we are done. Now I just need to do this thing. Declare a bool visited array. Bool vis 501 cross 501 maybe. Mem set it. Mem set vis 0 size of vis. Simply loop through all the elements for I equals to 0, I less than. So let me find out integer n comma m. N is going to be grid dot size, the number of rows, and m is going to be grid at 0 dot size, the number of columns. This particular guy is not yet visited. If not, is at ij, then perform a DFS. Parent, just give parent values equals to -2 maybe, something that is invalid because initially there's no parent for I comma j. Pass in ij, pass in the grade, nm and viz. Pass in the grade, nm and viz. Let me just return a 0 or return cycle here, and my work should be done by this. Okay, initialize cycle to 0. One more function, bool is valid, simply tells if the particular cell is valid or not, so that I don't get a seg fault trying to access -1 grid -1 comma 0 or something like that. So if I less than 0 or j less than 0 or I greater than equal to n or j greater than equal to n m, then it's not valid, otherwise it is valid. Let's try using this and get a lot of errors and try fixing them. Compile error as expected, line 10. Okay. What's the problem here? I don't see any problem. Okay, this is just LeetCode hating because I don't see any problem, to be honest. Expected this. Bool DFS viz. Is it some fault in passing it? Is it that I cannot pass it or something? Okay. Does this work? Oops. This is Java syntax. I'm down. Yeah, this is good. Now we're getting a runtime error. Runtime errors are nice. Address sanitizer. If only I understood all this. Let's see what could give me a runtime error. Bool viz, and I would start from here. This one not equal to this j, or this j not equal to pj. That's cool. This looks okay to me. I do check is valid everywhere, and I do access the right positions. Calls are correct. Is valid looks okay to me. I less than 0, j less than 0, or I greater than n equal to n, and j return 0. This return 1. Looks okay. Okay. Ij, the next people will be I comma j minus 1. In here, I minus 1 comma j. In here it's right, and here also it's right. Let me try running it again. Okay, it did pass. Let me submit. Wrong answer. Not expected, but okay. BSc, CSC, DDC, BCC. Okay, this is the input, and Output should be true. I am giving true. Expected is false. Why do I do that? Okay, so it's B. I would start a BFS from here. I would not reach anywhere from here. Okay. So I would start from here, I would not reach anywhere. Then I would start from here, I would not reach anywhere. Start from here, not reach anywhere. Okay. Start from here, again not reach anywhere. This keeps happening. From D, from this guy, I would go till this guy, but back. Then why would I get a cycle? This doesn't make sense at all. Maybe I'm not passing the parents correctly. That could be the only fault. So I'm everywhere saying I comma j, I comma j, I comma j is the parent. So that should not be the problem. I'm talking about I minus 1 and j, and I compared I minus 1 to the parent and j pj. I compared I to pi, j plus 1 to pj looks okay. Yup. I plus 1 to pi, j to pj. If this and this, so this is not equal to pi or this is not equal to pj, any of this is true. If both of these are false, then this evaluates into false and this particular if statement fails, which is what I want. Alright guys, so it took me quite a lot of time. I'm quite out of touch, but hopefully this video was helpful to you, and we did do all the 4 questions. We will definitely get shortlisted for the interviews, and I expect that it was helpful to you, and I definitely would like if you like, share and subscribe. Tell me in the comments what could be improved in the videos and whether you find this format helpful or not. Thanks for watching guys. See you.